Alright, welcome back. So, I kind of shifted gears. The last video that I did, I actually kind of tightened up the UI, fixed a lot of bugs and stuff like that. So now, let's go to the back end. What we all been waiting for. This is the Node-RED implementation. And as we implement Node-RED in little pieces, what we're going to do is we're going to clean up a lot of the code on the front end. That means that we're going to start making services and libraries that actually interact with our Node-RED. So, first of all, let's start out with authentication. So right here I have these models right here that I have for authentication. And let's try to get those models into Node-RED, which I've already got them in there. So, now, let's do this. Let's go over and grab our Node-RED implementation, which is right here. I actually use PM2, so I'm going to use PM2 for this. I had to kind of customize this to work with my Windows box. This is cross-platform. You can use this on the Linux box as well. And so let's make sure let's see our status. Our server is running, and let's turn the monitor back on. So what I like to do is while I develop in Node-RED, I like to monitor everything. So first, so let's talk about our workflow. So what I expect for this workflow is someone to send a username and password, and what we're going to do is authenticate that username and password. And what I personally want to do is return a JWT token. So JWT tokens, what happens is say you have a piece of information and you want to validate that information or validate if that user is authenticated, and also validate the fact that it has not expired. So you can make it where they have a session or a token based on the expiration date, and you can control what features that user can use and stuff like that. So let's get started. So the first endpoint that I did here was I did a version 1 authenticate, because if I want to go to a version 2, I want to leave room open for that. So this is our endpoint, and this right here is my node, or this is my base URL, the base URL. And you'll see me use that later on. So this is the Node-RED. I can change that at any time. So all we do is we just use this component right here to accept a post request. So when that post request come in, we want to read that payload. So what I'm doing is I'm taking a payload and I'm converting it from JSON, which we send as JSON, to a JavaScript object. Then what I do is right here is I do a little bit of magic. So right here I didn't do the login fully, but right here you'll see eventually you'll see logic for the login, and then what we do is we take those results, we put into the payload, we rewrite the message, and then we send a new message to the next component. Okay? So the next component from authenticate user is the JWT token. So right here we sign the JWT token. You put a username, password. Is optional if you want to do a key file or anything like that. And what I'm doing is I want you to sign the payload, but put the signature into the messages token, the message token parameter or token variable. Okay. So after I do that, I have two options. I send them in two different places. So this right here will go away because I just want to see what that message look like. So when you make a token, and you'll see what I mean by this, when you make a token, it's just like scrambled characters. When you validate that token, it's going to come back to you the same object. When it's decrypted, it comes back the same object that you sent, if it's not expired. Okay? So what I do is I built the response. And so with the response, what I do is I actually take that token that came from the previous step and rewrite the payload and then I rewrite the request and response. And then what I do is I want this, so I have two options. I can spit the token back at them in a response, or I can put the token in the header. So I did both for now. So then what we do is we return that payload back to this right here. This is where the response come out, where it goes back to the user. Right here, the validation, like I said, we send the message token that we validated here, that we made here, and then we turn it into the payload. We tell it to write it to the payload, and then right here we print it off to the screen, the debugger. All right? Late night. Okay. So right here, so let's test it out. So we want a username and password. So for instance, right here, we want to take this object, take the username and password, and we're not doing anything with the username and password, but I do put your username back in here to show that it's actually working. Okay? So now, let's go over to here. Let's take this right here, and right here, let's take this right here. So I'm using Postman to test this out. And so what I'm going to do is so let's go into how we're going to build this Postman. So it is going to be a post, okay, to this URL right here. And this is where the red notes came in then version 1 Authenticate that I talked about in the beginning of the video. So now, let's make the object that we're going to send. So I made it where the object that we're going to send is going to be JSON. Okay? And so I make the JSON object, your username and password, and then what I do is I send it. So when I send it, see right here how I get this token right here? And then if you go over to the header, the token is here as well. So if you just want the token in the header, and you want them to pull it out of the header every time, that's fine. That's the practice that I usually do, is I put the token in the header, and this token is going to be when we want to authenticate them, when we want to give them permissions to something, when we want to, and you'll see me, over time, you'll see me talk about claims, which they send the object to me. I decrypt the claim, decrypt the token to get the claims object, or the structure, or a structure of an object. So, if you go and look back, right here, when I sent it, this is that scrambled, all that scrambled, encrypted response that you saw, and this is that message I told you about. So see how it comes back to me? But, if you notice, I'm so sorry, it's been a late night. But if you notice, right here it has an expiration date. Okay, this is when it was signed, and this is when it expires. Okay, so right here it looks exactly like that object that we made on the front end. What I usually do is I build my front end and I build my back end around my front end, because the front end is all the features that everyone expects to have. So that's how I usually work. I don't build the back end first and then build the front end. I think that's backwards. So now that that's being said, we can go through here and we can actually test this now, and we can get those results back. So every time I go through and I send a message, see, my messages come through. And this is PM2, by the way. And I'll be doing more things, and over time I'll be showing the things that I add. Thanks.